Dear students, continuation of analysis of major themes in the novel. Second point, the theme of varying passions. However, even a cursory glance at the novel's tone would make such a line of inquiry seem pointless. Driven by wild and often uncontrollable emotions, the plot has absolutely no intention to be a record of cataclysmic social changes. Bronte has neither the aptitude nor the intellect of George Eliot to manage it. The suggestions of it are incidental. They do not distract us from the actual purpose of the novel, which is bound to its peculiar tenor. The plot is no doubt driven forward on the levels of events by Heathcliff's desire for revenge. However, in essence, the plot is about the savage and doomed love of Heathcliff and Catherine that tears through the real and spills over into the metaphysical and the supernatural. The title provides a hint to the approach. To udar is to shake vigorously, which suggests that the house is exposed to the harsh winds of the moors. There is something bleak and exposed about the Anshas themselves. The brute strength of their emotions overwhelms everything else until it reigns absolutely. Hindley and Catherine are victims of their savage passions. They can no more control it than they control the harsh winds of the moors. If Hindley's hatred for Heathcliff was absolute, so was his love for his wife. Her death pushes him to a decline which ends eventually in dissipation, ruin, and death. There is much of that absolute abandon in Catherine. Catherine is torn apart by her despair because she goes against her nature and bows down to social demands. Her intensely strong natural impulses destroy her for her disloyal act of conformity. Heathcliff is more than an outsider. He is a dark and brooding man whose intensity of passions is strong enough to easily overwhelm more moral and ethical persons. There is something elemental about his desires, as if he embodies the pre-civilized urges in man in all their savage glory. The turbulence and stormy weather of Wuthering Heights represents the nature of those who reside in it. The author doesn't waste any opportunity to point out the affinity between Heathcliff and the moors. In their bleak desolation that stretches for miles, the moors, both treacherous and inviting, seem far away from human concerns. Catherine and Heathcliff are at their happiest in the moors because it is there that their love for each other is free from all petty considerations that divert their thoughts elsewhere. There, in the absence of humanly imposed barriers, they celebrate a passions that seem as permanent as earth itself. On the other hand, Thrushcross Grange is removed from the harshness of the elements. Its residents represent the decencies of civilization and good sense. They are meant to represent the observer of the Anshas. And yet, it is not as if Bronte supports one over the other. There is something malnourished about the Lintons. There is too much property and too less passion. Compared to the uncontrolled ferocity of Heathcliff's love for Catherine, Linton's love seems no more than a well-regulated emotion. His love is a controlled affair, well within the bounds of social decorum. It is an enervated emotion which seems a pale and weak thing. There is much to suggest that in the absence of any real experience of humanity at large and social interactions in general, Emily Bronte chose to write about human passions, the most universal subject of all. In her isolation, she pursued in the Moors suggestions of naked strength and brutality that created a peculiar philosophy of human nature. The vast expanse of the landscape and its melancholic bleakness gave an impression of timelessness, as if it somehow communicated the sadness of the earth's ancient age. It was not only removed from humanity, it in fact made all human concerns with morality seem trivial. Thomas Hardy was to do much the same with the settings of the Return of the Native. Edgar Heath represents the ancient truth of the world and human concerns seem funny and futile. What Bronte pursued in the Moors, she personified in the form of Heathcliff. To attribute his immortality, immorality to deliberate villainy would be as pointless as blaming the Moors for deliberate destructiveness. His soul is intent on possessing Catherine. Anything that distracts him from this purpose is dismissed without a thought. When he when he loses her, all his energies are turned to destroy everyone who kept her away from him. But revenge doesn't substitute his consuming passion for her. When Lockwood tells him of the apparition, he accepts the possibility of re- reuniting with her on a supernatural plane. He is as little skeptical about it as he is worried about his treatment of Isabella. By the end of the novel, he has lost all interest in revenge. When we were told that he is slowly starving himself, it becomes clear why, since he cannot conjure her up no matter how hard he tries. The only way to see her again would be to join her in the afterlife. This is exactly what the author suggests when she tells us that some villagers have seen the both of them around their graves. This, however, doesn't from the resolution of our themes. We are given to understand that hope for harmony lies in the character of Kathy. She has her mother's fairy temperament and her father's good sense. A steady in innocence at the beginning, she soon falls prey to Heathcliff plans and ends up marrying Linton against her father's wishes. We meet her at the beginning of the novel. Her experience has lost her a bitter and cynical creature. However, she doesn't allow herself to be a victim of it. By the end of the novel, we find her happy at the prospect of new love in the form of Hayton. In Kathy, there is no danger of excess. It was excess of passion and instinct that ruined the Earnshaws. And it was weakness that made the Lintons passive victims. Heathcliff's mal- malignant presence begins to disappear long before he dies. The prospect of a supernatural reunion with Catherine makes him unmindful of the people around him. Scared by her bitter experience, Kathy does become surely more and morose. She does not, however, allow it to gain complete dominance over her as had been the case with her uncle. She allows the prospect of new love to re-establish possibility of happiness. In the balance illustrated in her nature, the novel suggests its final harmony and its absolute resolution. Thank you.